It is mid-January and we are stuck inside. All I can think about is being out in the summer sunshine, in my garden with the dirt on my hands. But for now, the garden is covered in snow. So all I can do is prepare for the next upcoming garden season. Come along with me as I plan my 2023 garden. Let's get started. Hi, I'm Desiree. I live with my husband and 3 kids on a 40-acre homestead in northern Minnesota. Together we strive for self-sufficiency in teaching our kids important life skills. Follow along as we share our garden, care for our animals, preserving the harvest, made from scratch cooking, and our day-to-day life on the homestead. If you are new to gardening, you are going to hear a lot of advice. You're going to hear from people that tell you you have to do X, Y, and Z. You're going to hear different opinions on companion planting and plant spacing and mulching or not mulching, and so on. Well, I'm here to tell you it's really not that difficult. Seeds want to grow, and in most cases, a gardener is really not even needed. But we like to overcomplicate things. My successes and my failures will be different than yours. Every gardener does things different, and every garden is different. All the soil is different, the water conditions, and so on. Each year as your garden grows, so will your knowledge, and you will learn what works best for you. Now, how do you know when to start your garden in the spring? Well, a lot of people seem to think that it goes off of your gardening zone, but it actually doesn't. What you need to go off of is your last frost date. You're also going to want to know your first frost date in the fall, and you're going to want to know how many days are in your season. Your gardening zone is important to know if you plan to plant things like a perennial garden. You'll want to know if the perennial plant will last through your winter. Now, to find all these dates, you can just simply enter in a Google search. Enter first frost date for either your zip code or your city. Write that down. Then do the same for your last frost date, which would be in the fall. If the Farmer's Almanac pops up for those dates, use those. I like that website best because it also shares with you how many days are in your season. But if you can't find that, all you have to do is do another Google search asking how many days are between day A and date B. For me, my first frost date is May 28th, my last frost date is September 11th, and I have 105 days in my season. I am in zone 3B in northern Minnesota. I have a very short season. Now, if you're already gardening, you already have the type of garden planned out in your head that you want, and you've already been out there doing it. But if you're new to gardening, you'll have to figure out which type you would like. So there's raised bed gardens, there's in-ground gardens, there's container gardens, there is vertical gardens. Do your research, figure out which type you would like. Now you'll have to figure out the location for your garden. You'll want sunlight for about 8 hours a day or more. You'll want to make sure that you have a water source nearby in case you need to water your garden. And you will have to make sure that you have well-draining soil. And if you don't have well-draining soil, then you'll have to figure out some alternatives. For an example, you're not going to want to put your garden in a big dip in your yard where the water pools into a puddle and doesn't drain. That would not be good for your plants. Now that you have the type of garden you want in mind and you have the location in mind, you'll have to figure out what it is that you want to plant and the quantity of how many plants you would like. Now, you will see things on Pinterest that says that you need X amount of plants for 4 people in the family. I personally don't use charts like that. One year, 1 cucumber plant could be enough for my family of 5, and then the next year, 1 plant could maybe not produce as much and it wouldn't be enough. In my opinion, it truly is just a trial and error type thing. You have to figure out what works best for you. you're new to gardening, the first thing that you might want to do when planning for spacing in your garden and how many plants is to just figure out how big plants get. Like for an example, if you plant pumpkin seeds, you're going to need a pretty big space. Pumpkins vine out and they take up a lot of room. If you're planting things like sunflowers or corn, one plant isn't going to take up much room, but to get the quantity that you want, you're going to need several plants and then it's going to take up more room. Or how about tomato plants? One tomato plant isn't going to take up much room if you're trimming it. But if you don't trim it, it's going to turn into like a big bushy plant. You have to figure out which techniques you want to use in your garden. Do your research. My favorite way to research gardening techniques is right here on YouTube. I love looking at videos on YouTube to figure out what will work best for me in my garden. This is also a book that I recommend. It is actually from a YouTuber that I totally admire. She is now an author, and it's Jessica Sowards. She wrote The First Time Gardeners Growing Vegetables. You can get this on Amazon. This is a great book, and I will link it below. So now you know the type of garden that you would like to have, the location of your garden, what you would like to grow in your garden, and the techniques that you would like to use. Now it's time to plan the layout of your garden. This is my favorite part. Some gardeners might not do this. They might just go out into their garden and throw their seeds around, and that's great. That's good too. I personally like to plan it out. I like to have a little visual map. So here's how I do it. I like to use a grid paper like this, and I simply draw out the map of my garden. You can find this grid paper in my 20-page PDF downloadable printable garden journal that I have created. I will put the link in the description of this video. In the 20 pages you will find a garden planning page to put down your important dates, a page to do your garden layout, monthly garden to-do lists, a plant profile, seed inventory, supplies inventory, seed starting log, seed supplier review, harvest log, garden expenses, direct sowing list, transplant list, indoor sowing guide, outdoor sowing guide, season review, and more. One of my favorite pages in the journal is the plant profile. Here I'm filling out a profile for tomatoes. I can record things like the location that I will put the tomatoes, the days to maturity for harvesting, if I'll be direct sowing or transplanting, the plant's light and moisture needs, planting instructions, the dates of planting, transplanting, and harvesting. There's a spot for general care. So for an example, for tomatoes, I like to prune the suckers off of my tomatoes and the side shoots. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, stay tuned and I will be sharing videos on all of these things. There's also a spot for fertilizer if I choose to do that, although I do organic garden, so if I use any fertilizer, it would be organic. There's a spot for pest and disease and any extra notes. The journal is a nice visual organization tool for you to use throughout your gardening season, and it also has some useful information in there as well. I included things like the seeds that I sow indoors and the seeds that I sow outdoors, and also the timing of when to sow those seeds, and so on. Every year I've kept a journal like this for myself, and I just put it into a 3-ring binder. Did I mention I'm a little garden obsessed? So when I was doing mine this year, I thought that I would create one for my followers to use as well. Okay, let's move on to some more planning. Another thing you'll want to keep in mind is different pests or animals that might visit your garden. For me personally, we have a lot of deer in our area and I have to put fencing around my garden to keep the deer out. I've also lived in an area where the deer weren't a problem and I didn't have to have a fence at all. And one of the last things you'll want to do when planning your garden is buying your seeds. I personally like to look at seed catalogs. You can get these by just going online to the company's website and requesting one. Again, I like to have a visual. This is a big one from Baker Creek. This one actually does cost a little bit of money, but otherwise the rest of them are free. Baker Creek does have a free one as well. It's just a lot smaller. My favorite seed companies are Baker Creek. They have a lot of heirloom varieties that you can get, so I like to use them for my heirloom seeds. This year I bought a lot of my traditional seeds from M.I. Gardner. They're only $2, and it is a US based company and a small YouTuber that started the business out in Michigan. So I like to support small businesses like that. Other seed companies I've used is Gurney's. I use Johnny's seeds a lot for my cut flowers. You also use Haas Tools. There are so many options on companies for where to buy your seeds. You can even go to your local nursery or your big box stores to get your seeds as well. In an upcoming video, I will be sharing my seed haul and sharing with you everything that I will be planting in my 2023 garden. If you would like to follow along, make sure you like and subscribe. Otherwise, remember to keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. Do your research, choose your methods. Go into this season with confidence, and remember, if you fail, it's okay. There's always next year. As your garden grows, so do you. I look forward to gardening with you this season. Thanks for watching.